Should you track food cooked or raw?
Don't you want to look good naked?
So when we're talking about tracking raw versus cooked food, the biggest thing to remember is just staying consistent throughout time. So if you choose to track your food raw, just make sure that you are choosing that raw entry in your tracking app, whether it's MyFitnessPal or any app that you're choosing, and make sure that you're logging it raw and you're staying consistent over time. If you choose to track your food cooked, again, make sure that you are finding that entry in your tracking app that is for the cooked version and stay consistent with that. However, if we're trying to get super specific and really want to get kind of the weeds of things, I do think that tracking raw is going to be more accurate. And the reason for this is because certain foods change in whether they lose water or they absorb water after they're cooked. So a great example of this is cooking chicken breast, for example. When you cook, say, a pound of chicken breast, 16 ounces of chicken breast, and you measure that raw, you cook that, whether it's in the oven or on the grill or in the air fryer, however you cook it or you boil it, that is gonna change the weight of that 16 ounces of raw chicken after it's cooked. And the cooking method itself and how long you cook it could actually change that weight. So it's not just like, okay, 16 ounces of uncooked chicken breast is always gonna be, maybe 14 ounces or 13 ounces after it's cooked. It could depend on how long you grill it or how long you air fry it, and that will kind of change the post-cooked weight. Hopefully that makes sense. So when you're cooking things like meat, again, it's generally gonna lose some of that water weight. So when you measure it raw versus measure it cooked, that is gonna change. So if you are really trying to get specific, I would say measure raw and log raw. But if you are just focused on just getting into tracking, if you're thinking that, I'm gonna be measuring all of my stuff cooked, then maybe measure it cooked and just stay consistent with that. Another thing to think about is other types of food. So with rice, when you cook rice, it actually doubles in volume or sometimes triples in volume actually. So when you measure it out raw, it's not gonna be the same when you measure it out cooked. Also realize that, again, the cooking method you're using can change that raw versus cooked weight. So another example is potatoes. So whether you boil those potatoes or you put the potatoes in the oven, those potatoes are either gonna gain weight from the water because you're boiling them, so they might actually absorb that water weight, so they'll weigh more after you cook them, versus if you were gonna put them into the oven, they'll actually dehydrate a little bit and lose water weight. This is why I like to stick with measuring raw and tracking raw, just because the cooked versions of things can be a little bit more variable and sometimes inaccurate. But again, the biggest thing to pay attention to is consistency over time. So if you watch this video and you're like, holy crap, I don't know what to do, stay consistent, pick one method, be consistent over time. That's what's gonna matter most.